Hi. So I've been doing some posts today about, well, the nuts and bolts really. What is conscious parenting? Because as with so many things, when it's a new phrase or a new catchphrase, a new thing, it's actually been around for a little while. But in terms of the last 100 years or so of parenting, it is quite new. It sometimes can feel a bit scary and a bit, our subconscious, we talked about in other videos, our subconscious tries to protect us. And that's what it does. It's really its purpose. And so when we see something that's scary or different or something that feels like it might be more work when we're already overwhelmed with life, COVID, a specific issue that's going on at home, for example, relationships falling apart, or worries about our children being on devices, or co-parenting issues, we might see something new and think, yeah, that looks a bit interesting. It caught my eye, but I just can't add any more. And of course, the irony is that if you do invest in this kind of conscious parenting style, it alleviates a lot of the other stresses that we have. So I thought actually I've talked about some other issues, and I've done other training videos about specific techniques of the gingerbread person, and the helping children to label the name for the emotion that they're feeling, and also the reasons, or should we say the triggers, for those emotional responses. And so we have that, and those resources are in the After Conscious community group. So you're welcome to just look it up and then join. But actually, it'd be quite useful, I think, for a lot of people just to go back to basics. So what is it, and how is it different from gentle parenting or permissive parenting, or whatever of whatever you think of as normal parenting? Of course, many of you know that I'm in Vietnam right now, and it's always interesting to live in a different culture, and you just realise that our received wisdom in whatever country we grew up in is not truth. I guess it's a truth, it's a form of truth, but it's not the objective reality of truth. It's a version of truth. So people are a lot more hands-on, like touchy-feely with, hugging their children here. And when, for example, when my children are playing and they're just, running about or splashing in and out of the pool here, some of the other people, even like the groundskeepers here, will just stop and watch them for a minute and smile. And I found that really hard to get used to because children in Vietnamese culture, where I am right now, are really highly prized and loved, and their innocence is so special. So when they're making noise, they don't get shushed. It's just amazing coming from the UK, where I remember having my kids like scooting through our town, and sometimes they did get in people's way, not in a running people over way, but just because they're kids, or they go down a ramp, and it would just make them that little bit faster, and they'd lose control a bit, and the people at the bottom wouldn't be like, oh, here's a 3-year-old, are you okay? They'd be like, oh, there's a kid in the way again. So I mean, I know that there's varying experiences even within the UK and within every culture, and there's going to be grumpy Vietnamese people who are tired of kids and things, but it is a really big change. So just that idea that what we grew up with as how to do parenting isn't necessarily what is the way to do parenting, because, and this is why things like travel are so great, because when you see different cultures, everybody has their own view. It is a social construction, a societal norm. And so if you are feeling like the norm isn't right, I came to this from my, I'll do another video about this, of how I came to conscious parenting. But I started on this journey because things like the naughty step, I felt resistance and I didn't want to do it. And it wasn't in alignment with me and my values and the way that I think of children. And everybody around me was doing timeouts and naughty steps and, relaying stories at playgroup and things and baby club. And I was just kind of sitting there quietly like, I don't know what to do here. Which, of course, because me being me, led to research, reading, pop psychology books, like textbooks, because that's me, and then papers and watching TED Talks. And I am that person whose version of self-care is, can I go and watch a Royal Institute video of quantum physics? These kind of things. But all of it, I'll talk about quantum in another day, all of it feeds into me going on this journey to work out, actually, I don't have to follow societal norms. And you know what? You don't. You can do different. You can be different. And yes, it's scary. And yes, inside your brain, your subconscious is saying, do you want to be different? Do you want people to look at you? Do you want to be judged? And the only real way for us to get around that is to be brave. And also, what I've talked about in my writing Facebook post today and the Instagram post, and I even shared one on LinkedIn about it, was about the radical self-love. So when I tried to distill, because conscious parenting is, as with every theory, as with every style, as with every way of thinking, conscious parenting can be as big and as vast and as, I guess, intimidating to a new person as you want to make it. You can go down a rabbit hole, which is my thing, and you can keep going on forever and ever and ever, following each thinker and each talker, reading all the books and doing all the meditations and the affirmations. And if that's your thing, then go for it. But the reason that I do what I do with my 6-week program is that people want a fairly quick change from my stressful home life and disconnected relationships and everybody struggling with COVID life or mental health worries or repeating patterns from their childhood. I think the most common phrase that brings people to me is, I heard the voice of my mom, dad, granddad, significant scary person in life as a child. I heard that come out of my mouth and it made me realize I need to change something. And you can change it. This is the great thing. And it doesn't mean that you have to do hours, days, weeks, years of research, because people like me do that for you and then create programs. And then you can go from the negative cycles and the worry and the fear, and you can follow the 6-week program and then get to the point where you're on an even keel, where you are feeling strong, and when you're able to move forward with this lifestyle and all the connected family benefits and the calm and the love that comes with it. And of course, the increased confidence and self-esteem and the reduced anxiety. It's wonderful. Obviously, I'm biased. So it comes down to two things, two tenets. We have the radical responsibility. It's the first, and it does encompass lots of other things, but it basically means taking responsibility, and that isn't the same as blame, because blame comes with shame. Shame comes with guilt, and these are not the elevated emotions and the joy. They're not joy bringers. So if you are walking around your home with shame and guilt and just beating yourself up all the time, you're not doing anybody a service. And you know what? You don't have to, because I talk about this on about week 3 of the program is you can release all of that. There are techniques and meditations and really life-changing techniques that you can use for that. And so you take the radical responsibility, and it is radical because it is quite radical for us to say, without guilt and shame and without punishing ourselves, okay, stuff isn't right. I'm the adult, I'm the grown-up, and my relationship with my children, in that relationship, I'm the older one, I'm the bigger one, I am the one who can, if I choose to, which is automatically our default in a lot of cultures, if I choose to wield this authority. So I am in a position of leadership. So if we are having disconnect in our family, it kind of comes down to me. And I need to think on how I'm going to change that. We can't blame our 4-year-old. Yes, they're having a meltdown, or yes, they are pushing our buttons. But we need to, this is the radical responsibility, we need to realise, okay, my teenager is pushing my buttons all the time. My kid talking back to me is, in itself, that phrase, as if they don't have a right to engage with us in a form of critique, you just hurt me, Mom. Like they don't have a right to say that. That, my kid saying I upset them makes me really angry. My children being just really, really loud when I'm trying to work on Zoom, it really winds me up. And I know they're not doing anything wrong, but it really winds me up. We call it pushing my buttons. We call it winding me up. And radical responsibility is about going, okay, they're behaving in a certain way because they have a position of hurt. Their toy's been taken away from them. They are anxious about COVID schooling. They are worried because auntie such and such is poorly. Just life is a bit strained outside, and they are taking it out on me. And the radical responsibility bit is, and that is triggering me. So something inside of me can't cope with being shouted at. Something inside of me means that when they don't listen to me, I explode. And that comes from somewhere. And that comes from our emotional blueprint, which is laid down in our formative years up to about the age of 7. And that's where it comes. We are living these cycles in our lives, especially if you're doing the same. I often refer to this as the reaction, the trigger, reaction, guilt and shame cycle. Because when we are in a place of guilt and shame, we are more likely to be triggered by a child's behaviour. And the trigger leads us to react without consciousness and without thinking if we don't have the skills. And then the guilt, and then we go around and round and round again. So radical responsibility is not blame. It's not feeling crappy. It's not beating yourself up. It's just saying, okay, there's some issues and I need to go into myself and I need to solve them. I need to heal myself. I need to go back and examine within me and within my history what is the subtle driving force that I might not be aware of, or sometimes we are aware of it and we're just scared to relive it and think about it, and that's fine. So that's radical responsibility, and radical self-love goes with it, because, as I was saying, radical responsibility isn't the same as shame and blame and basically taking all the blame for all the problems of your family onto your shoulders. It is just that. It's just thinking, okay, I need to go into myself and I need to think this through. That's it. And that comes with the radical self-love, because it's being able to love yourself enough to say, okay, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to live in a happy environment. I don't need to shame myself to move forward. And it goes further than that I am carrying these wounds from my childhood, whether they be trauma with a lowercase t of, like I often talk about being the baby of 5 and, not being heard because there just wasn't space. And nobody's to blame for that. So I guess that's radical love for everybody. Nobody's there to blame with that for that. That's just the life of, growing up in a big old household. And there are so many benefits to having a brother and a sister and 3 brothers. It's just how it was. But the self-love is without blame for other people, without blame for yourself, saying, yeah, I get that. I have these wounds, and it causes a trigger, like being very upset when you're not heard in your adulthood, or shutting down in meetings when you're not heard, or just exploding at your kids when they're not listening and they're not putting their shoes on. So I've identified that wound, and because I love myself, I know I don't have to live with that wound. It's not disrespectful to my parents to make the choice that, I understand where all this came from. I understand it's nobody's fault. I understand it wasn't my fault. But, I have a right to heal my inner child. That 7-year-old who was just trying to be heard at the dinner table and was just too small and too quiet to be heard. I have a right not to be playing that out in my adulthood. And my family have a right to not have a mom who is living out this issue. And the radical responsibility is going back and dealing with it with radical self-love. Radical self-love also comes with self-care. I'm saying it like that because self-care has become kind of a ridiculous buzzword, at least to my mind. When people say, like, have a shower on your own, it's self-care. I don't think that's self-care. I think that's basic hygiene. Thinking about things like stay-at-home mums, nobody says to, or stay-at-home dads, nobody says to the spouse or the partner or whoever that goes out to work, nobody says, oh, have a shower, it's self-care. They don't even acknowledge it because it's just a shower. You deserve a shower. But self-love and real meaningful self-care is listening to a podcast that lights you up, that really interests you. I have a client right now who is getting religious instruction from her home country. She found a podcast, or it's a broadcast, and she now on a Sunday morning puts her headphones in while she's making breakfast and she listens to it. That is self-care. That is feeding her spirit and her way of communing with the divine. That is true self-care, and that will feed her entire self as she walks the path of conscious parenting. Because we can't go into our childhood blueprints and our subconscious without looking after ourselves. We can't sit through an 8-year-old throwing their homeschool work at us and then having a massive meltdown because they miss their friends and they're scared that somebody's going to die in their family. We can't deal with that without having our emotions get in the way if we are not strong. And that means your body is strong. So you're eating good food, you're sleeping, you are drinking 8 cups of water at least a day. These things sound simple, and these are the things that fall by the wayside when we get stressed out. And radical responsibility and radical self-love are saying, actually, no, I need this. I deserve this. My family deserve this. And I am a leader with love. So I will feed my body vegetables. I will drink water. I will try and go to sleep even half an hour early. I've always struggled with that one, so I'm there with you on that one. The going to bed early. And then nurturing our spirit, this is our relationship with the divine, the greater world. And if you're religious, it could be God, it could be seeking enlightenment, it could be following meditations, it could be going out for a walk in nature. You don't have to be religious, but that side of ourselves that we just forget. We forget things like this. So we have the spiritual, and the other one is our passions. This is really key in things like reparenting, because when we have, as children, had too much dumped on us, like if parents, say, are addicts and the older brother is looking after a younger sister in more of a parental mode than a sibling mode, that one of the things one of the many things that comes out of that is that they don't experience joy in their childhood. We often see things in novels and films and, well, I guess memoirs of people who feel their this is a phrase that we say, my childhood was taken away too soon, that loss of innocence. And you can have that if, with anything in your background, you will know, you will be listening to this and thinking, oh, ouch. Because we all have that, the times in our childhoods where we took on too much and we were forced to not be children. And one of the things that we miss out on when that happens to us, through no fault necessarily of other people, or sometimes in a really not good way, you don't have to forgive everything. You don't have to say, okay, Mom, that's fine. I understand you had different drivers. I understand you weren't in a good place. You don't have to forgive. But if you want to move forward, you need to take the radical responsibility for your own self-healing. So if you know that you missed out on just joy, just playing with your friends for the sake of it, because that's what kids do, just being allowed to draw comic books instead of being forced to do, essays that you didn't want to do, or when you really wanted to follow science, but you were told, this isn't an age-old story, but you were told that because you were a girl, you shouldn't be doing physics, you should be doing poetry or writing or whatever. Or, if you wanted to be an artist and your parents were pushing you to be a doctor because they didn't have a doctor in the family, or whatever it is. Joy is a key way that you can heal yourself. And it is as simple as picking up some watercolours for 15 minutes a week. It's as simple as going for a walk. It's simple as buying the comic books that you didn't get to read as a kid and reading them. It could be anything. It could be playing a sport that you wished you could have done. And also, it doesn't have to be something related to your childhood. I mean, that's probably the most healing way of doing it, but it could be anything that you fancy doing now that you keep putting off because you don't have time, or it's excessive because I've got so many other things to do. I don't have time to write my novel. I can't possibly go on one of those digital art gallery tours. I mean, there's stuff like that all over YouTube right now. Like, you could go to the most amazing places. You can go visit a zoo from your computer, and I know it's not the same, but it's an option. And we probably for the first time ever, I'm trying to find the positives in all of this, but probably the first time ever, you can go to the Louvre on your phone to take 10 minutes to do it. This is self-care. This is real, meaningful self-care. Body, spirit, and passion, whatever lights you up, whatever you put on the back burner that makes you happy. And that is self-care, which is linked to self-love. So hopefully that's been helpful as, I guess, an introduction to the main basics of conscious parenting. If you would like to know more, just send me a direct message on whatever platform you see this on. I'm pretty much always about. And if I don't get your message straight away, I will reply to it. I ring fence an hour or two each day, at least 1 hour, to look at my messages and respond. And if you want to talk about how this would look in your household, how you can do it, and if you're thinking, do you know what, I really want to go through this process, but I just don't have the time to do this. 6 weeks. I have a program that will take you through this, fully guided by me, that will take you through this process and completely transform your family life, the way you think about yourself, and your mental health. It's incredible, and it's not going to take you a long time. You could choose to do it on your own, obviously, and I will be putting out a list of books and podcasts and key thinkers. And that might be your self-care, to go through that. You're feeding your spirit or your passion. It's my passion right now. Or you could just take the short version. So yes, if you would like to book a discovery call, then I'll put the link beneath this video and you can just message me and we'll sort it out. Okay, have a really, really lovely day. I hope that's given you something to think of. And I also really, really hope that you use this prompt to think body, spirit, passion. What can I do? Even a 5-minute warm-up off the internet. Tabata is really good. Yoga is really good. Just something, or a walk. That's absolutely fine. So something for your body, something for your spiritual side, whatever that looks like for you, and something for your passion that lights you up. And you will find already through doing that huge changes in your home life, how you feel about yourself, and how much energy you have for the needs of the people around you. Okay, goodbye. See you soon.